Have you ever looked at the world and asked yourself, if God is good, why is there so much suffering? Why do innocent people get sick? Why do good people lose the people they love? Why are some prayers answered while others seem to disappear into silence? And maybe this question is not just something you think about when you look at the world. Maybe it is personal. Maybe something has happened in your own life, and deep down you have asked, God, why did you allow this to happen to me? For thousands of years, people have wrestled with that question. And the Bible never pretends that it is an easy one to answer. But one of the most powerful stories in the Bible gives us a perspective that many people never expect. It is the story of Job.
Job was a good man who loved God. He had a family, wealth, and a good life. But then almost everything was taken from him. His wealth disappeared, his children died, and his own body became painfully sick. In a very short time, Job lost more than most people could imagine losing. Naturally, he began asking the same question many of us would ask. Why? What did I do? Why is this happening to me? But here is what makes Job's story so difficult. After all his suffering, Job never receives a full explanation. God does not sit him down and explain every reason behind everything that happened. Instead, God asks Job something unexpected.
Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? At first, those words can sound harsh, but God was showing Job something important. Job was trying to understand the entire universe by looking at one small piece of it, and sometimes we do the same thing. We look at one painful moment in our lives and try to understand God's entire plan, but we cannot see everything. We do not know everything that happened before us. We cannot see what may be happening behind the scenes, and we cannot see what may happen years from now. We see one chapter, but God sees the whole story. But that still leaves us with a difficult question. Why does suffering exist at all? One reason is that we live in a broken world. The world we experience today is not the perfect world God originally intended. Because of sin, death, pain, disease, and evil entered the human experience. Human beings were also given the freedom to make choices, but with that freedom came the ability to choose evil. People hurt other people. Wars happen. Betrayal happens. Greed happens. And many terrible things happen because human beings make terrible choices. But that does not explain everything. Not all suffering is caused by someone's personal choice. Sometimes good people suffer. Sometimes children suffer. Sometimes terrible things happen, and there seems to be no simple answer. That is what makes suffering so difficult. We want a reason. We want to know exactly why. But sometimes the answer we receive is not an explanation. Sometimes it is a presence. When Lazarus died, his sisters were devastated. When Jesus finally arrived, something remarkable happened. Jesus already knew that he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. He knew that death was not going to be the end of the story. And yet, when he saw the pain of the people around him, Jesus wept. He did not tell them to stop crying. He did not immediately begin explaining everything. He stood with them in their grief, and he wept. And that may be one of the most powerful truths in Christianity. God is not distant from human suffering. Jesus experienced it himself. He was betrayed, rejected, mocked, beaten, and crucified. So when you are in pain, you are not talking to a God who knows nothing about suffering. You are talking to a God who entered into it. But suffering can also be confusing because sometimes God can bring something good out of something that was never good. And that does not mean every terrible thing that happens to you is good. Pain is painful, loss is loss, and evil is still evil. We should never pretend otherwise. But the Christian hope is that suffering does not have the final word. The cross itself proves that. When Jesus was crucified, the people watching believed they were witnessing defeat. It looked as though evil had won. It looked as though the story was over. But 3 days later, everything changed. The thing that looked like the end was not the end. And maybe that is something you need to remember today. Just because you cannot see the purpose does not mean your story has no purpose. Just because you cannot see the next chapter does not mean the story is over. But what about the suffering you are carrying right now? The illness, the loss, the disappointment, the prayer that still has not been answered. I will not tell you that I know exactly why God allowed it, and neither should anyone else pretend that they know. Some suffering cannot be explained with a simple sentence, but I can tell you this: your suffering is not invisible to God. Your tears are not meaningless to him, and your pain does not mean that he has abandoned you. Sometimes the answer to the question, why am I suffering, is not a reason, at least not yet. Sometimes the first answer is simply this: I am with you. Maybe you do not understand what God is doing right now. Maybe you have prayed for the pain to end. Maybe you have asked the same question again and again. But even in the middle of your suffering, you are not alone. Job eventually received restoration. Lazarus walked out of the tomb, and Jesus rose again. But even when we do not understand God's timing, the message remains the same. The darkness is real, but darkness is not always the end of the story.
Pain is real, but pain is not greater than God. Suffering is real, but suffering does not have the final word. The God who walked with Job, the God who stood beside Lazarus' tomb and wept, and the God who raised Jesus from the dead is still with you. So if you are suffering today, do not stop asking questions. Do not stop praying, and do not stop trusting. Because sometimes faith is not about having every answer. Sometimes faith is holding on to God when you do not understand the story, and trusting that He can still bring light out of even the darkest chapter. And maybe that is where your story is right now. Not at the end, but in the middle of a chapter you do not yet understand.
If this message spoke to you, I want you to do something. Comment, God, I still trust you. Even if life does not make sense right now, let that comment be your reminder that you are choosing not to give up. And if you want more videos about faith, Jesus, the Bible, and the difficult questions Christians wrestle with, subscribe to Now Believers. We are going to keep exploring these questions together.